This is Living Life with Brendan podcast, inspiring people to choose to focus on the positives and live a life with purpose. Welcome, everybody, to Living Life with Brendan podcast. I'm so excited today to have my first live guest, Tony DeMarais, with me today. Tony's one of my best friends. We grew up together. He's actually the one that pulled me out of the water the night of my injury, and we're going to dive into all these events, kind of our relationship as friends, how it's grown from fifth grade all the way to where we are now as 34-year-olds and growing up in life. And so very excited to have Tony on the podcast today, and welcome.
What's up, Brent? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Feels weird to see a podcast studio set up in your house.
Yeah, well, you know, we do what we can these days.
No, I love it. Just been here a lot of days and a lot of nights, and it's pretty cool to see the setup.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'd say, you know, growing up, your parents actually moved, a block away, I'd say?
Yeah, one block away, right down Rice Lake Road, 5th grade.
Rice Lake Road. So I moved here in 2nd grade, and you came in 5th grade, but just being so close, we ended up walking to school together, I think.
Yeah, I think I think you were the first person that had actually kind of introduced yourself in the 5th grade, whatever that introduction looks like. And then we just started walking to and from school.
Yeah. It's so funny looking back.
Roadrunners.
Rice Lake Roadrunners.
Yeah.
Oh man, good times. I remember quite a bit from there, just teachers, school, and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty sweet. We had a good friend group and had some fun recess times, and
absolutely.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
No, that's great. And then actually the big split happened was junior high at our age was 7, 8, 9. And they drew the new boundary lines, which, I mean, your parents live a block away.
Yeah.
And we somehow got split up at junior highs. I went to Osseo. You went to Maple Grove.
Yeah, both of us are pretty close to the border, I'd say.
Right, we're right on teetering. So I'd say we were probably pretty close friends for the 2 years that we first met.
Yep.
You know, inseparable, walking to school, walking back from school, soccer together, sports.
Yep.
And then, you know, junior high, we split, just going Maple Grove, Osseo. You were a soccer guy, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, played soccer all growing up.
Nice.
You did too.
Yeah, a little bit. I fell in love with it later in my years here,
Yeah.
but no, in junior high then I went to Osseo, played hockey. You were soccer at Maple Grove, and kind of fell through, you know, the relationship itself, just having, you know, that distance between us. We never really saw each other in and out, but we stayed close within our groups with athletics.
Yeah.
You know, because we always play 2 years with hockey, so I knew some of the soccer guys that played both.
Yeah. And I had some of my close soccer, or besides one or two, most of my soccer guys were at Osseo Middle.
Oh yeah.
Like Bowman and
Oh yeah, I remember them.
Ike and those guys, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So we always had overlapping friends between those years.
Yeah. Because you had hockey guys that went to Maple Grove too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just funny how, you know, those are the years you kind of grow. Everybody kind of grows. Every once in a while you go in there at 100 pounds, 4'2", and then next thing you know, you're 5, 6 feet tall when you finally get back to high school.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we blossomed as well, I'd say, getting a chance back at Maple Grove Senior.
Yeah.
You know, again with athletics, but it was so funny seeing you walk around and be like, oh my God, I remember you from 5th and 6th grade.
Yeah, that's kind of the cool thing is like you build those friendships in elementary, and at the time it sucks that you have to go to different schools, but then, you know, you kind of regroup when you're, at the time it was 10th grade, right? You kind of regroup with a new friend group, and it's kind of exciting seeing old friends that you were friends with in elementary school, and then, just kind of having it all come together.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the cool things about relationships and growth. Like you said, you never know where they're going to go.
Yeah.
And with close friends, you know, there's some that fizzle out, some that last, and it just happens where senior high, we didn't hang out a ton, I wouldn't say. No. You know, we ran around circles that knew each other. And, you know, for those 3 years at Maple Grove, you know, we'd hang out, we'd see each other at parties or outings. We always supported other events and whatnot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember going to a lot of your hockey games and just cheering you guys on. And it was fun times going to different sporting events.
Always had the pool parties here too. So
pool parties were good. Yeah.
So then, you know, we can kind of jump into college years is actually where we got closer as well, because
Yeah.
I went to Gustavus to play hockey,
Hmm.
and then you were at Mankato right away.
Yeah, I went to Mankato for a year and then I transferred to the U.
Okay.
Tommy Stanson and I roomed together, so that might have brought us back a
Yeah,
little
because
bit.
we had a couple nights in Mankato
Yeah.
that were fun. But then, I want to jump into one of the things why I wanted to have you on is obviously just our relationship as a whole,
Hmm.
but then talking about the night of the injury itself, because this is, something that we've talked about and discussed quite a bit. And a lot of people have heard, my side of the story and what I've went through.
Hmm.
But I personally, disclaimer to everybody out there, have never heard your side of the story of that night.
Hmm.
And so this is going to be impactful and new to me, new to everybody out there. And so, with that night and how we were in college and hanging out,
Hmm.
I know that you had transferred, I think sophomore year, were you at the U?
Sophomore year, yep.
Okay. So we had finished sophomore year,
Hmm.
and then we were actually just at Lifetime saying how, oh my God, it's been so long since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
You had told me about people going up to a cabin.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of fun. There are a lot of friends there that I knew. And so I was like, I'm sold. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And so, just going up there, having the night, we had, I think 5, 6 people I drove, up to the cabin, had a great time during the night.
Hmm.
And everybody's heard my side of, we were hanging out at the cabin, having a great time, wanted to jump in.
Hmm.
I do remember you kind of laughing at me like, are you seriously going to want to go jump in the water right now?
Yeah.
And, running down the dock, having you be out there with me, still giving me a bunch of crap for wanting to jump in late at night.
Yeah.
But then my instance of running down, jumping in, blacking out, for me, I don't know how long that was.
Hmm.
Waking up, inhaling water face down, not able to move and kind of going through the emotions that I was going through.
Hmm.
But this is the spotlight that I'm really curious of is, the events of that night, how it pertained from your side, and just getting a full scope of basically that entire night.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like you said, it started at Lifetime. Yeah, we ran into some buddies and one of them was having friends up at the cabin. And, that's the cool part about, we talked about elementary, middle, and high school, but that's the cool thing about college is when you come back, you can kind of reconnect with high school friends. And yeah, I remember going up there, and I think that's the most important thing to talk about kind of before the injury happened is that we had fun, but it wasn't anything like crazy, right? Like everybody was pretty responsible. Like you said, we had just finished up our sophomore year in college. So, it was a fun night, but everybody was responsible. I think, before you and I went down to the dock, everybody was cleaning up the cabin and people were getting ready to go to bed. And yes, I think you had mentioned that you wanted to go in to the lake, and obviously you're a big cabin pool guy growing up. So from my side of things, going down there, like I'm kind of a worrywart. I've had some things happen leading up into that point to just kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of a mother hen worrywart, right? So like I didn't want to go in, but I wanted to go down there with you. And I remember going down there, and I think we got to the beginning of the dock and you asked me again, you're like, sure you're not going in? I was like, I don't know, man, maybe, but I'm not going first. And then I remember you throwing me your towel, and it was kind of an L-shaped dock. So like,
Yep.
as you were, running out, I don't think you ran, but I think you just kind of lightly jogged
Yep.
and then dove in. And then when you were in the water, I pretty much, took a right on the L-shaped dock and then put our stuff down. I think I started to sit down or whatever, but yeah, the image that I'll never have out of my mind or never get out of my mind is that, I remember seeing you kind of float up to the water, and the moon was out. I don't know if it was a full moon that night, but I remember the moon just kind of lighting up the lake and then lighting up your back. Like I could see the moon like reflect off your back, and that image just stills in my mind. But you kind of, hit a point where you're like, okay, at what point, at first I thought you were joking, right? A little bit, which, we're college, we're kind of, playing, that's kind of your prime year of playing jokes on each other and just kind of having, you know. And so it took me a few seconds to realize like, hey, this is serious. And I do remember jumping in feet first because I don't know how to dive. So I jumped in feet first, and I'll never forget, like the water was just like up to my waist. Yeah. And, you know, I'm 6'2", so the water was pretty low. And I think you were like probably 15, 20 yards, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 yards from the dock. Felt like 50.
Right.
But I think after you dove, you probably kind of drifted out a little bit, you know, within those 5 seconds, 10 seconds of me getting to you. But, you know, I wouldn't say it's a blur. It's very gray on me getting to you. And I knew that I had to flip you over or turn you over because you had taken in water, right? Is that kind of your...
Yeah. So for me, the thing I'll never forget is the grin that I gave you that you gave me when I threw you my towel.
Yeah.
Like I remember this.
Yeah.
Full aware.
Yeah.
And then jumping in, just like every other shallow dive dock. I did it a week before at a friend's cabin on the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting, you know, cool, calm, like jump in, get refreshed right before bed. And for me, diving in is that time, I don't know how long I was out. It was very quick. And then I was inhaling water face down,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't move. But the weird thing is I wasn't in full panic mode. I think I was in shock.
Sure.
So for me, it felt extremely long.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't burning lungs or having any sort of fear.
Sure.
It was inhaling through my nose, not my mouth. I don't know why I was choosing to do that. But for me, when you flipped me, it almost felt like a shot of adrenaline.
Sure.
Because that's when I was able to gasp for air.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there are some things after you flip me, I'd love to hear it continue because that's where some of the pieces are for me that also I'd love to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So I got you and kind of turned you over and was just kind of carrying you. And you were, you know, kind of face up to the sky. And then I just did my best to walk over to the dock as quickly as possible. And then I yelled up to the cabin, you know, very loud. The cabin, I guess to give you guys some visual, it was probably, you know, 100 yards up from the lake and up a hill a little bit. Thankfully, the windows were open, so I think 2 of our friends had heard me yelling, but it had taken some time. I don't know what the time was, probably close to, I don't know, like 5-7 minutes for somebody to come down. So, you know, my initial calls, nobody was coming. So I'm like, okay, well, I have to get you up on the dock. Like, you know, a million thoughts are going through my head as far as like what happened to you. And it really wasn't, you know, clear to me, you know, my initial shock that like you had broke your neck. Right.
I had no
maybe
idea.
You didn't even know.
No, I had no idea what happened. I just couldn't move.
Yeah.
Were we conversing? Because I know when I was flipped over and I was able to breathe again, I do remember going up and then under again.
Yeah. So after my initial calls up to the cabin and after a few minutes, you know, I'm holding you and you're, you know, you're lighter than me.
I'm a big boy.
Yeah. You were what, like 160, 170?
I was about 185.
Okay. That college weight. So yeah, you felt like 200, 300 pounds. Yeah. And, you know, I would say I'm fit, but I'm not like super strong. So I tried to just get you up on the dock because, you know, that was just what I was thinking at the time, that I just needed to get you up because if no one was coming down, I would have to get up there to call 911 or tell people because I don't think we brought our phones down to the water. Right. So that was my initial thought is I have to get you up, one, for your sake, like what's going on, like if you need medical attention right away, but then also like if I can't get anyone to come down, I have to be the one to go up there. So I did try to put you up, lift you up. And maybe if I had benched a little more, I would have been able to get you up. But I kind of got your, like half of you, like kind of your butt cheek on the dock. And then I, you know, tried to lift you up and I couldn't. And then you kind of fell back to me, which was, you know, and then you kind of fell into the water a little bit, like under the edge of the dock. Right. So then I kind of had to grab you again. And then I kept yelling. And then, yeah, 2 of our buddies came down. And I think I was able to kind of lift you up in the same position, and they were able to kind of one scooped your legs and one kind of grabbed your upper body and put you on the dock. And then I think at that point, you know, everybody in the cabin was, I think a few people were sleeping, but I think everybody was awake at that point. And then after that happened, after I got out of the water, then people came down to the dock.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the ambulance came. We were able to get a ride, and then I was actually choppered to North Memorial from there. And, you know, as that story continues to play out, kind of the next steps, you know, I know what I was going through. You know, I had the surgery that night, thankfully. But that's when the doors started opening for friends to come see me, visitations, and, you know, you being there from the night before, me being, you know, happy go lucky fun, to injury, to next days, weeks up to, I know what I was feeling. And I'm always so curious to know, and being someone that's extremely close to me, what that was like for you on your side during it. So if you could elaborate that'd be.
Yeah. So as soon as they took you in ambulance to go airlifted, you know, the cops stayed there and we all had to go through questioning. So I'll never forget, you know, being put in the back of a cop car and just being questioned immediately. And yeah, that's, you know, I was still, you know, in shock of what had happened and trying to gather my thoughts. So that was, you know, I understand that they had to do that, but that was kind of, you know, where I was 20 years old and have gone through that, and then being able to, or I guess having to answer questions, was a little difficult. So just kind of that initial shock. And like, I remember sorry to backtrack a little bit, but when you went on the dock, you know, there was shock in everybody that was down there. And we're like, I just remember people like, "Oh, you're okay, Bren. Like, you know, it's not as bad as you think," or whatever. We're trying to convince ourselves that it wasn't that bad.
Right.
And thankfully, one of the girls there was a certified nurse, or she was going through her certification schooling to be a nurse. And she was like, "Guys, this is serious." So she was the one to kind of convince the group, like, "Hey, we have to call someone." But after the event, and I remember, you know, telling my parents and just kind of breaking down and just kind of getting that out, which was probably good for me initially. But, you know, I remember like you being in the hospital and like, you know, people want to know like how appropriate or how ready you were to see visitors. I do remember going to the hospital and, you know, embracing with your parents. I think my dad went with me to the hospital. But yeah, just kind of seeing you like that state, you know, obviously like right after the injury were your more rough days, and like based on, you know, the initial diagnosis that you received, that was, you know, very difficult to go through that process, but then like have it like solidified in your mind. It, like in my mind, like, holy shit, this was bad. And seeing you like that, you know, that was obviously pretty difficult.
And that's where I remember knowing how bad it was, no matter how much my friends would juice it up. You know, you guys got to go to a room and say, "All right, we know that he's in a terrible condition.
Right.
Let's try and make it as light as possible." And when everybody would come in, that's when I knew right away that it's really bad. Even if someone came in and was like, "Oh, you look great." It's like, bullshit.
Right.
I do not look great.
Right.
But that's where, you know, I talked about on my previous one, how it got to a point where I felt bad that I couldn't converse back with people to tell them how it was or how I'm feeling. That's where it got really hard for me. And I actually shunned some people away. But just going back to, you know, with you and your dad and coming in and whatnot, I guess, you know, as it progressed to see from North Memorial to following the Caring Bridge, I'm sure, with updates, as that continued to go along, I guess, what were your thoughts, you know, as far as, did you question the relationship, where it was going to go, how things were going to go?
You know, I don't think I questioned the relationship, just because like, you know, I knew the person you were and like how, you know, and we're very similar in the aspect of like our close friends are very important to us. So I don't ever think I questioned, you know, you wanting to continue to be friends, or like you kind of shying away or like kind of blocking like my support. I don't think I ever felt that. at all from you or your parents, or your family based on what had happened. I did feel, there were times where it's like, what if I would have gone in? Right. And I think that everybody thinks that in hindsight. And especially in my case, where like, I don't know how to dive. So like, if I would have jumped in, maybe things would be the same. Maybe they would be different. I mean, you had mentioned like you shallow dove, the week before, so you know how to shallow dive. But I think that was, I wouldn't say it was guilt, but that thought weighed on my mind a lot. And I think that's just natural, right?
Of course. And that's when, I obviously look at what if I would have just jumped in feet first.
Yeah.
That'll eat you up.
Yeah.
And that's what I talk about my mindset all the time, the what ifs and whatnot. Don't let them get you, because there's always hindsight's 2020, as they say. So, I've talked to people that felt guilty that were at the cabin over years and years. And I was like, if you would have just reached out to me earlier, seeing how I was able to overcome it, and kind of get through it.
Yeah.
There's no need for people to feel that type of guilt. But, one thing I was very curious about is, how often do you still think about that night?
That's a good question. What was that, like
14 years ago.
Yeah, 14 years ago. I mean, I would say I still think about it. I wouldn't say nightly. It's definitely like a weekly type of thing, just because like, that's a pretty traumatic event for obviously you to go through, but then, whoever's part of that event. And we were so young, right? Yeah, I would say like it is definitely on my mind. It's not like a nightly thing, just because like, now we're 34 and we just have so much going on in life that can kind of distract you in good ways. But it is, I think you and I have always been, like you said, this is the first time you're hearing my full side of the story. But I think, it took a little time as you kind of went through your rehab and stuff, but it never really has been like a barrier for us to like talk through and stuff like that. So I think that helped me, where like, if there was that barrier, if there was that, if you were a little more hard on the surface as far as, not letting me in and not letting me kind of talk through things and develop our relationship from that point, I think it would have been, I probably would think about it more.
Right.
But yeah, kind of what were some of the initial challenges? You had mentioned it was kind of hard to see people, and, obviously you couldn't interact with people, but what are some of the initial challenges, as you were in the hospital, had your initial surgery, and then you went to Craig after, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I'd say one of the toughest things for me that I mentioned is losing my voice, not being able to breathe on my own. It's extremely frustrating having a machine telling when you can breathe and when you can't, not being able to speak. So just going through, I had to go through multiple tests to see if I had a strong enough diaphragm to be able to get off the ventilator. And that's why even my voice now is not as strong as I'd like it to be. It's still very strong for a C4 level injury, so a high up injury, which is great, and I'm very thankful for. But you'll hear a lot of people, that are injured have to kind of take in their breaths as they talk.
Yep.
So thankfully I was young, in shape, fit, had a strong enough diaphragm to continue conversations and being able to speak. I'd say that one's really tough. Like I said, not being able to communicate, and then going through swallow tests, having to relearn how to eat, being able to make sure I wasn't going to choke on certain things. That was tough. And then the biggest thing for me too is, autonomic dysreflexia, learning about my body, the pins and needles, the feeling, hot and cold, temperature regulation. So for all of you that don't know, autonomic dysreflexia is basically, I can only feel from a certain level up from my paralysis. So for me, it's like a pencil line right up on my chest, and up, that's where I have full sensation. Everywhere else in my body is very splotchy to no sensation at all. And when something's wrong, I get this spidey sense. So it's basically kind of a little flicker in my head that says something's wrong. And as it progresses, it gets stronger and stronger. Kind of turns to sweat and certain things. And it could be anything from my sock is twisted in my shoe to something extremely severe, like I have, a knife in my leg or something like that. Obviously, the severity comes through, but it starts as this little flicker. And over the years, I've learned to kind of figure out and go through a checklist as to what could be wrong. But there's certain things that you learn, and, temperature regulation is huge. I have a really hard time adapting because I don't walk around, I don't move, so I don't get that blood circulation. That's why I wonder why I live in Minnesota all the time, because we have winter. But that one's tough. It's really hard to get warm once I'm cold and cold once I'm warm.
Right.
So those are some of the really big ones that I've continued to progress and work with on a daily basis that, typical people wouldn't understand unless you're in the situation. And obviously I can dive deeper into those on specifics, but no, this is just the understanding of that night from your side and other people's side is it kind of helps me come full circle with the injury. I've gone through and understood my side for so long, and I've always wanted to. It's just the person that I am, trying to gain full aspect of certain things. And so it's unbelievable to hear from your side and knowing, and I don't ever want you to feel the guilt for it because I wouldn't be here today without you.
Right.
So
yeah. No, I appreciate that.
I'm really happy that, you're at a place where you are with it. And I think we're at a good spot with it as well. As we continue to move, there are so many things after the injury that once I was out at Craig, got off the ventilator, I was finally able to come home. I mean, you were still in school while I was out there.
Yeah.
So I, getting a chance to come see me as a 21-year-old in college and whatnot. But when we came home, the visitors and the food and everything was just spectacular. And as I continued with school, I think our relationship just blossomed as we continued to navigate life. And so there's so many things that, just highlighting off the top of my mind that I can think of. The first one was probably you went to the U. I think your sister went to the U, and we were just talking about concerts, and I think it was Spring Jam was the first one we went to where we were out and about together at a big event. And, it was something that you planned. You got tickets for me. I was super grateful. We ended up seeing one of our friends perform, opened up for someone. We got VIP and went back and just really enjoyed the time. And that was, for me, that was the first step of being like, okay, I'm injured, but I can still go do this. We did a concert, we navigated through everything, got backstage, had just a blast of a time. I remember coming home that night thinking, like, we can do this.
Yeah.
There's no reason why I can't be doing things.
Right.
It's different. Yeah, sure, it's different, but we had so much fun. And again, from my side, it's different because I was worried, what's it going to be like? There's people, they're my friends.
Right.
Are they going to treat me different now?
Right.
And then from your side, I mean, you can speak on it, just the first time taking me out.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like you said, there's challenges, right? You got to, make sure you can get to specific areas and whatnot. But like, yeah, it wasn't really a question in my mind as far as like, and it's never really been like, hey, this is going on. Like, I never felt, afraid or, I've always wanted to like ask you to do things. Right. And I don't think that was in my mind. And I think that probably helped, a lot of your friends to realize like he is, maybe after that event, like he is comfortable going out. And I think maybe that opened the doors up for them to, want to include you on stuff.
Right. And just seeing me out, being able to say, okay, he does want to go out.
Yeah.
Right. Like I always want to go out.
Yeah.
But I could see after an event like this or a change like this, people being a little hesitant.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Right.
And it's not like, people didn't want to include you on what, at least from my side of things, like I just wanted to make sure that it was something that you were going to enjoy, right? Not that like, I'm just trying to get you out of the house and like check that box, but I wanted you to like actually enjoy like what we were doing.
Right.
And then once I found out that you had a good time, that kind of just snowballed into a lot of other things that we were able to do.
Right. So some of those, I mean, as far as events go, we went to the opening of US Bank. You got us tickets to that. Unbelievable night. Getting to see the facility. He brought me to Allianz Field. We saw the soccer stadium when it was first built. I think for my birthday, we went to that Timberwolves game.
Yep.
Yeah, down watching that, it was unbelievable. And so, we've been to all these events, Vikings game, big Minnesota sports fans here. So just these certain things, they're so fun and it's so achievable, but it does take a little bit more work. I'd say for me, the toughest thing is learning patience after my injury and having to plan certain things. I'm not as spontaneous.
Yeah.
So definitely notes taken there for anybody that has someone who's gone through an injury that needs a little bit more assistance. There is a little bit more planning that needs to go, but man, when we were having so much fun when we get there and get everything solidified and planned out. As far as trips go, we've been to, you drove with us when we drove to Vegas,
Yep.
which is 20 some hours in the old van, and had a great time there. We went to, you made it up to my cabin a couple years ago.
Yep. Yep.
Actually got to bring Mace.
Yep. Got to bring Mace and Mal and your grandparents' cabin up in Grand Rapids.
Yep. Yeah. So your oldest at the time, you're only at the time.
Yeah.
It's so fun seeing you grow with your family and being able to have them and include them in my life as we continue to grow too. So
yeah, absolutely. No, that's been a blast. I think, like I said, our relationship just kind of snowballed, and obviously we both like going to events, but there's a lot of just hangout days in between there. And obviously the Live Life clothing thing that we started together, and that kind of really, I think kickstarted both you and I's kind of, business, taste, right? As far as like what we wanted to do. Obviously we weren't super experienced, but I think that kind of, projected us a little bit on kind of what our career paths look like. So very fortunate for that opportunity to do that with you. And I think that kind of, doing that, business with one of your close friends is difficult, but I think that kind of, glued our personal relationship a little, and just kind of set the foundation for us.
Right. And for all of you that don't know, we actually started a clothing line when I was 21. We were both 21 at the time, and we thought it was a huge failure, and it inevitably, looking back, was not a failure. And so kind of looking to bring that back a little bit. So be on the lookout. This is going to be our logo, just Live Life. We've got our wing structure and then the star for the North Star State of Minnesota. So working on that, continue. So be on the lookout for more apparel and gear on our way. But no, that's definitely a really good point where we got to get a chance to understand each other, not just on a personal level, but then professional level.
Yeah.
As we move through. But then, the big trip that I want to focus on is London and how fun it was for me. Not only just getting out of the country, I've been to Mexico when we were 18, but going over the pond, as they say. Getting a chance to just that entire trip was so much fun for me.
Yeah.
And there were so many things that were catastrophic.
Yeah.
But so many on such a fun level.
Yeah.
So how the heck did this even stem?
Well, I mean, one of my many part-time jobs, during my 20s, I worked for Delta, and I had these buddy passes, and you get, 40 or 50% off working with Delta. So, yeah, I mean, a couple weeks before had a close buddy that was playing overseas, and, just kind of my spontaneous mind was like, hey, let's do this. And then, just trying to think of who would be able to go over there. Like I said, I've never really shunned away from asking you to do fun stuff. And I asked you, I think a couple weeks before. I think I asked one of our other buddies like 3 or 4 nights before. But yeah, I was able to use some of those buddy passes. And Nicole, your longtime PCA, came along, which obviously she kind of was the glue, the mother hen for our trip. But yeah, it was kind of came together pretty quick. But it was a heck of a time. It
was so funny. So I get the text that's just 2 weeks before, and he's like, what are you doing in a couple of weeks? And of course I had nothing planned. I'm like, I'm working, not a whole lot. And you're like, what are your thoughts on a trip to London? Like, what do you mean? What are my thoughts? Sure. Like, yeah, it'd be great. Yeah. You're like, haha, seriously.
Yeah.
Get it ready.
Yeah.
And I remember using the buddy passes, and we're like, oh, we can get this for somewhat cheap. I think the coolest thing was the flexibility. I wasn't able to do it in a few nights, but 2 weeks was enough for me to plan it, get work off,
Yep.
get my PCA to commit because I do need help wherever I go places, which I can dive into more with other guests. But got that solidified, and I'll never forget. We're at the airport with the buddy passes, and we drive up there. We got a red eye flight. We're like, I wonder if this will work. And so we drive up to the counter. I asked the lady, I'm like, hey, what are the chances that we can get bumped up to first class? And I remember she just did her little keyboard type thing. She's like, well, how many of you are there? And we're like, oh, shoot, there's 4 of us. And it was 2 seconds later. She's like, yep, you're good to go. So we got bumped up to first class. And I remember loading in the plane. We get into first class, and you could definitely tell that none of us have ever flown first class because they started giving out socks. They were giving out headphones, and we're like Christmas morning, ripping open socks, yelling to each other. They got socks. We got free socks.
We got blankets. We got pillows.
Blankets and pillows. And then they did the flights and the meals.
Yep.
And do you remember the guy that was in first class with us?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So he, instead of getting meals intermittently for this flight, he's like, no, give them all to me right away.
Yeah.
So he took all his meals.
Yeah.
And he ate them all right away.
Yeah.
And then he put his curtain up, and it was just a do not disturb. This guy definitely travels quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because he ate that, and then he just passed out for the 7 hours.
Yeah. No, after flying a lot over the years, just with work and stuff, you get those business people that just want to eat, get it done, and then, sleep because they got to land and then, do shit. But yeah, us kids now, we stayed awake the whole time and just enjoyed every happy hour pass, every, all probably the flicks that we watched on, and just, I mean, the nicest thing about first class is that you just can lay flat.
Right.
Like they're lay flat. So like being able to sit up in like a main cabin, you can go back a little bit, but the ability to like lay flat. And you were able to lay flat, right? Once we got you situated.
So in my situation, as we go through and I start to talk more about my injury, is pressure sores are massive. It's something to avoid just with my injury because I'm sitting all the time. But again, I can't feel certain areas. So if you can imagine sitting uncomfortably in a chair and then being like, okay, this is uncomfortable, I'm going to move.
Yeah.
I don't have that ability.
Yep.
And so it would just continue to get really bad for me. So that's why I constantly have to be moving around.
Switch position.
Right.
Yeah.
So on this plane, able to maneuver and have it tilt back, that pressure moves from one solidified spot to different areas. We get to lay off of it. So yeah, it was unbelievable. It was something that was just fantastic for me. And then I'll never forget, landing, going through the airport. But then when we got to our room, thankfully your friend who plays over there was able to help me out with the room because not only do I need, more assistance than most people, but we had a room that was connected to the stadium. I mean, it was the works when we got over there, which again, super great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he set it up. He set it up perfect. I mean, couldn't have asked for a better setup.
And the problem was my chair, we go over, and I didn't do a lot of studying before we went over to London on converters. So the first night we go in to plug my chair, and all of a sudden we just like this zap. It's gone. There's no charging. So my chair again lost power about day 1.5. I'm trying to conserve. We're putzing around.
We were there for what, 4 or 5 days?
5 days, I think.
5 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a whole story there of trying to find a charger. Thankfully, we were able to find a charger from like a local Circuit City. Just a backstory and a half on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once we found the charger, and had a few days, got acclimated to the time zone, I'd say my favorite memory was the night we went out to that club with Cody and a couple of the player over there, and his family was in town. Oh man, we were just drinks, clubs, singing.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. Dancing, middle of the dance floor.
Yeah.
I'm not shy when I'm out in public. Had a few drinks in me.
Yeah.
At night I love to be out there, sitting on the dance floor.
Oh yeah.
Whooping it up. But I'll never forget, we it's getting late. It's probably 2 a.m. Things just done shut down,
Yeah.
which is also awesome.
Yeah.
But then Cody and I were like, we're starving. We're really hungry now. We're going to go to McDonald's because why not?
Yeah.
So I remember Cody and I went to McDonald's with a few people.
Yeah.
And then you separated from us. We didn't know where the hell you went.
Yeah. Ryan and I went to, Rents and I went to this like club that was connected to the casino, and the McDonald's you went to was in the casino. But yeah, this club was like 4 different themes, and we had gone there a few nights, like our first night, I think, and met some people. And yeah, it was just a blast. Just like they had like this 70s kind of like disco theme. They had kind of like a darker club. I can't even remember the other two, but yeah, it was a pretty sweet complex as far as like that club, those 4 clubs being connected to the casino. And then I think we had left the clubs to try to meet up with you guys, or we went to the casino. And then I just remember being at the blackjack table, and obviously we were hungry too. So we're like, did you guys bring us some food? And I just remember.
This is my favorite part of the story, is because when we got separated, we had no idea where you went.
Yeah.
You knew we went to get food.
Yeah.
So not only were we at McDonald's, which by the way, there was 100 people at this McDonald's at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Like just having a
Oh,
ball.
yeah. A lot of people there.
And then all you kept texting me was that you wanted cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
So, of course, another little hack to the world of being paralyzed in my chair is I don't get patted down a whole lot when I go places. So at the time, I thought it was a great idea I kept asking, like, how many do you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're like at least 2 or 3 a piece.
Yeah.
So we're at McDonald's, got food, enjoyed it. And then I remember Cody was like, hey, how are we going to get these in there? And I was like, oh, got a great idea. So I stuffed cheeseburgers up in my shirt around my waistline here, knowing that they weren't going to pat me down. And I remember the look when we went from McDonald's into the casino, we saw you. And I remember Cody pulled my shirt up and pulled out cheeseburgers.
Oh, yeah.
And the look on you guys' faces were like, we just came in with like saviors.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So
yeah, because you couldn't bring outside food in.
no, but they're not going to pat me down. That's
Yeah.
the beautiful thing. I cruised through.
And we just
pulled out
proceeded to eat them
cheeseburgers.
at the blackjack table.
They didn't even care. That was another great thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Just seeing you guys, I can still instill in my face. Like it was like a kid just coming down to a presents under a tree on Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And everybody has those moments where, McDonald's has come through in the clutch, and yeah, you guys definitely came in the clutch that time.
Shout out McDonald's.
Shout out to McDonald's.
2 a.m. No big deal. No, that was just fun. And then you helped me get in a taxi. I think it was like 4:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Had to get help to get back to the hotel.
Yep.
But then Nicole was there to help me get into bed. But
Yep.
that was a night. And then the funny thing is we had to that was in Milton Keynes, which is about an hour north of London.
Yeah, hours south, I think.
Okay.
London, yeah.
But then our last day, we decided to do the touristy London. Let's go see Big Ben. Let's have fun with it, be tourists. So we actually drive down to our hotel. We didn't stay the night. However it was, we got into and we wanted to go to, the transit system that they have and being able to navigate. And I remember the closest one to the hotel we were at, we got tickets and she took my ticket and we go through and then it's just stairs that drop down to the transit system. And basically we got the tickets, we go to this stair fall and I'm like, where the hell is the elevator? And I remember going back to the lady and being like, hey, where's your elevator? And she's like, we don't have an elevator. And I remember thinking to myself, you saw me come through and get tickets and didn't think, how is that going to go down the stairs?
No. Yeah, she wanted to tell you after you bought your tickets.
Yeah, of course. So as we continued to go, we then had to go onto the rail system. We had to find a few stops that allowed, wheelchairs to be on.
Yep.
So we got this taxi, which was great. Taxis were pretty easy to grab at the time. And I remember the transit system at every stop, it's not necessarily going to be flat. And so it could be up 8 inches, could be down, could be close. And so as we continued to navigate where we wanted to go, we saw Big Ben. We went over to I think the World War II Museum, saw the London Eye,
Yep.
just a beautiful thing. And as we got to our stop to come back to the one we needed to be at, they didn't call ahead with a ramp. And so we had a drop of like 8 inches, which doesn't seem like much, but these chairs are 300 plus pounds without me in them. And so I remember it's like we can either try and jet out of this thing, otherwise we're going to be looped for another hour on this till they get a ramp. So we just hit it like Fast and the Furious. I felt just like Vin Diesel cruising through this thing.
And it's not easy to like grab your chair and like lift you, like wait aside, like, you know, because you have to stay close because you can't really extend your arms. Like,
Right.
you know, if I'm lifting up your chair, I can't extend my arms and, you know, lift you and move you over. But so it is a little difficult. So people are like, well, why don't you guys just lift them off? Well, yeah, it's, if you lift this chair with you in it, it's not the easiest to maneuver.
Right. And again, you're a big guy. Not everybody has friends that are
Yeah.
big in amount. So I remember you guys kind of, you guided me
Yeah.
as I cruised off this.
Yeah.
It was like Buzz Lightyear where he's not flying.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's falling
He's
with style
falling.
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I felt just shooting out of this. A slow-mo could have made the movies.
Yeah.
So we got off there, thankfully, and then our taxi driver left us high and dry.
Mm-hmm.
So we were stuck in the streets of London. It starts raining,
Yeah.
pouring. We were freezing.
Yeah.
We're in bad areas. I don't even know where we were.
Yeah.
Cody, I remember, is just like, we probably don't want to be here any longer.
Yeah. I just remember Cody like booking it all through the streets and he's got his arm in a sling and I'm just like, oh man, he's going to just like wipe and get more hurt.
Right.
But yeah, it wasn't a good area. And, you know, you kind of like have those moments like in, especially in another country where you're like, I don't feel, you know, the most comfortable right now.
Just
So
couple Americans
just
out there.
trying to navigate through the streets of London. But yeah, it was downpouring. We kind of had to take little breaks, you know, sit under canopies for a little bit, and Cody would, you know, sprint to the next street to try to get a taxi. But
We did. We got one person we flagged down,
got one guy that was,
and
just
we're
willing
like,
to-
can we all fit in here, please?
yeah,
We'll give you all the money we have.
yeah, yeah.
We didn't have a lot of money at
No,
the time,
no,
but
change.
we gave them all our cash, drove us to the hotel. Oh my goodness, that was the biggest saver because I thought we'd have to, I think it was like 25 miles
Yeah,
because we looked it up and I was like, I don't think my chair can make it.
right.
So we started heading just to see, and then we flagged them down, which was great,
Yeah,
but super fun.
yeah,
And then, of course, on the way home, we asked again, went up to the trusty counter and said, hey, we've got these tickets. What are the chances we
Yeah.
can get bumped to first class?
yeah.
She said, how many are there? And this time we had 5.
Mhm.
So I'm like, oh gosh, there's no way.
Yeah,
2 seconds later, yep, you're good to go.
yeah.
So note, never going to know unless you ask. Just go for it and just try asking.
Oh, it's funny because you're not supposed to ask. As a worker, if you bring like people on, as a worker, you're not supposed to ask. But yeah, but I mean, it is good to just check in.
I asked, not you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
don't
you
worry.
asked.
Don't worry.
Yeah. I'll just say you went off and did your
Keep
own
your
thing.
name clear.
He's crazy. Yeah.
No, so then, flying first class was great on the way back.
Hmm.
Always really nice. Obviously, the same setup that we have.
Yeah. No, it's a sweet setup. And thankfully I was able to utilize the perks a little bit. My wife now and I went to Barcelona for a trip, and yeah, it's a good perk, but yeah, first class is the way to go. So, when you fly, like what are the challenges, are there different challenges from, that was a long time ago from when we went, obviously it was an international flight, but what does that like domestic flight process look like as far as you getting to the airport, you pretty much all the way to like you get in your rental car?
Right. So you've seen it a few times. It's kind of a disaster right now. Thank the Lord Delta has started going through something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's intact or when it will be used.
Mhm.
And Steve, you can pull up the photo of it, what it's going to look like.
Mhm.
So basically right now, I get to the airport early. They put a tag on my chair,
Mhm.
letting them know it's going to be the last piece that goes into the plane. Take care of it as best they can, but I've seen some horror stories. So then I go down the shuttle early, and I go from this chair to an aisle chair, which is basically like a dolly, if you've seen, and I get strapped in there. And then I take that chair to my seat chair. I take everything off this chair that I don't want broken. And so I get on about 10, 15 minutes before everyone. And then when the plane lands,
They load your chair underneath, right?
Yep, last. That's what that
Last,
tag
okay,
does.
Yep.
Just making sure they take as much care as they can. But again, this is my livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we land, everybody gets off. They get my chair. I don't get out of my plane chair into the aisle chair because it's really uncomfortable until I know my regular chair is brought all the way back up to the terminal.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, they're trying to get me off, trying to get out of the plane so they can clean it, which I understand, but I'm not going to sit in this really uncomfortable, that's not good for my body until there. So, and I know there's been a lot of issues with airlines and chairs because I get people don't fully understand the severity of it, but you got to realize that with this, if I don't have this, I don't have anything.
Right.
Like I can't just go into a regular wheelchair because it's not fit for me.
Right.
It doesn't do the same as the cushions. Like there's so much that still needs to be done.
Right.
Rather can't just hop wheelchair to wheelchair.
Right.
There's so much specialized, equipment that goes into it. So the beautiful thing that Delta has been doing is they just launched a wheelchair seat. So basically, to my knowledge, I'll be able to just drive this in there and stay in this chair.
Awesome.
Instead of having to avoid all those other complications.
Yeah, that's a lot easier.
Right. It makes traveling.
You probably feel more comfortable, obviously, doing that.
My goodness, yeah. Not only for worrying about my chair, but then worrying about my body in the plane's chair. Being able to navigate, it'll make trips so much easier for work, for fun, for pleasure. Like that's the biggest thing too, is I don't have this hindrance on wanting, oh man, now I got to fly. I got to go through all these hurdles just to get onto the plane, let alone everything else that goes through it. But this would be fantastic. And, the other thing too from these trips is it just goes to show like everything can be done.
Right.
Like it's so beautiful. Like the world out there is so much to see.
Yeah.
And traveling, if it's not on your to-do list, great. Like you can still go through hobbies. And that's, talking about the activities that we've gone through, trips to London, like I'm able to fulfill what I want to do. Like you said, with a little bit more planning, a little bit more things along the way, but it's still achievable and it still helps me appreciate everything in life, even with this life-changing injury.
Right.
Like I'm able to navigate, go do what I want to do, support my sports teams, enjoy, time, looking at certain things, going to travel the world, and the accommodations are coming, right? Like this is the chair is going to be great for flying as we navigate through. Now it's going to open the doors to doing longer flights,
right?
Going to see other places if I want to. I don't have huge desires to, but now the door's open for me. So that's really exciting to what we have moving forward. And then, as we navigate from that trip, that was, I think, only 5-6 years ago. With life now, I mean, I guess.
Oh, the Europe or the England trip?
Yeah.
I think that was close to like 10 years maybe.
No, I think it was only 6, but we can look back.
We'll look back.
We'll look back. What you're saying is we need another trip.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. We'll do another one.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2
No,
weeks,
I can probably cut it. So you're saying there's more accommodations, so I could probably let you know, a week in advance now.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Time can be cut down.
Delta, let me just fly right in there. I'll just drive in.
Yeah.
Can you
Except
get those?
I don't work anymore, so we're gonna have to.
We're gonna need you to get employed.
Yeah. I can. Yeah.
We're gonna need you to get employed by Delta.
Yep.
For at least a month.
At least a month. Yeah.
And then we'll
just enough to get through the training program.
Yes. Then we'll just ask them. We'll bump up. I'll ask now.
You ask.
There we go. We got this painted.
Yep.
No, so that trip to me solidified that I can basically do anything. I mean, as far as trips go, being able to have fun, navigate through soccer games. We traveled London. I mean, anywhere we go now, I know that we'll be able to achieve it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a huge piece. And I think hopefully that will, inspire both able-bodied people and, people that are in your position or similar to your position, right? Because there is a lot out there to see, and I get not everybody wants to travel, but like you said, if the accommodations are there for, people in your type of situation, then, there's a lot of world to see. And yeah, we're not here for a long time. So got to make sure it's a good time.
Exactly. No, so let's fast forward to life now.
Yeah.
So, we talked about the injury night. We've talked about trips. Tell us a little bit more about kind of your life now. You mentioned, with the injury, it's not something you're thinking about every night with the diving night, but as far as what you're doing, things, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Life now looks like, I'm not the center of my own world, and my wife isn't the center of my own world, with having a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and a third one on the way, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Is this news to the world right now?
This is news to the world.
Wow, congratulations.
There's gonna be some time between launch, right?
Yeah.
This isn't gonna be out. You're not gonna like reverse it on me and launch like next week or in 2 weeks. Okay. Yep. Number 3 is on the way. Due in May. So I thought that'd be fun to share on the podcast. But no, the dad life, the parent life is, you kind of have an idea, especially if you have nephews and stuff. So you kind of get a perspective of what it's going to be like. But you don't really know everything until you get into it, just like most things in life. But dad life, still coaching high school soccer at Maple Grove, the boys JV team. Have given up club soccer. Okay. Which, I've been doing that for the last 10 years or so, which wouldn't trade those years for anything. But now I just kind of need to refocus my time and reset my priorities a little bit. So, that hurts giving up, just because, coaching for me is, not in it for the pay. It's more so just the impact that I can have to young kids on and off the field. But I'll still be able to get my fix through high school soccer. And once my kiddos hopefully play soccer, maybe I can get back into it. I don't know if I would want to be, their youth coach maybe for the early years, but maybe I'll get into it at some point. But other than, kiddos and coaching, just trying to take each day, man. I think, all of my 20s and my early 30s was, you're planning exciting things, but you're always looking forward to the next. So I've really tried to, over the last year or so, 6 months, just focus on be present in that day. And, you have to continue to, at least in my opinion, you have to continue to stack fun adventures, family time. Obviously there's a lot of life stuff that you have to get done, throughout the weeks. But I think if you can continue to stack up those fun times and those adventures, right, they're going to happen, but just enjoy the one that's going on now. So, and just working and traveling for work a lot, but trying to maintain, family and friend trips is always at the top of my list.
Awesome.
Spontaneous. So let's share a little bit about what's going on with you, presently, at your job, and kind of what do you like to do outside of work for the audience? People that don't know. Like
you said, if you ever need a little hockey assistance with the kiddos.
Okay. Yeah.
I can help.
Yeah. You're on the list.
I know a guy.
You're on the list.
I'm on the list. Make it happen. I'm still actually at the job today that you referred me into. Mm-hmm. So crushing it there.
Yes, you are.
So all those employers out there, don't be afraid to hire someone with a disability, because I am living proof right here. Just got promoted to a senior role over at the company, but I've been there for 6 years now still. Doing that, obviously I get to launch one of my lifelong goals here is working on this podcast.
Yep.
Continuing to, I want to travel a little bit more now that things are opening up with the airport, making that easier, doing some more road tripping. I'd love to have you out more as we continue to plan trips together as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll continue to do that. But, like I said, motto, living each day that I can, the best that I can. And one of the biggest things too is, as we continue to move forward, again, for just today, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing this with me, because it brings it full circle to that night. And it's not like I've been itching to fulfill it, but it really helps me paint that full picture. It's almost like a puzzle that's 99% complete,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of miss the piece, and you're like, at first you wonder where it's at, and then you
Mm-hmm.
kind of give up, and you're like, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And now I have that last inkling to close it off. But that was great, and being able to have the joys that we've had and experience it, being able to go out in public. And,
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing people in wheelchairs, people that are out there doing their thing, living it up, not
Mm-hmm.
letting their injuries or anything stop them from what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just goes to show, even last night, from how far the world has come with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you were just at a wedding last night.
Yeah, I was at a wedding last night, and I believe this 8-year-old. I believe she's 8 years old, but her name was Emma. I got her bracelet on right now. Um, I told her parents I'm not taking it off for a long time, just because. So she was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 4. I think she had a tumor on her spine. So because of the chemo that they had to do, she's now paralyzed from, I think, the waist down, her midsection down. But yeah, she was out there living her best life on the dance floor. And, you know, from her chemotherapy also, she is deaf. I think she has hearing. I think her mom can speak into like a little microphone
Okay.
to help her with some stuff, but she lost her hearing and now she's paralyzed. But she's able to move her arms, and she was out there just kind of moving and grooving with her chair and just doing little wheelies. And yeah, it was just, I mean, it was very kind of ironic to like experience that. Cause like, I didn't know a lot of people at this wedding. But so I was content with just kind of sitting and watching people. Usually I'm making a fool of myself on the dance floor, doing some high kicks or splitting pants. But it was ironic to see kind of that little girl having such a good time. And like, here I am, speaking with you and talking about, your injury and that night and just our journey. It was just it was strange. It was, but I just, watched her kind of live life, and just the joy that she brought people that were there, and just them watching her. And yeah, I'll send you her following. So hopefully we can maybe get that,
Yeah.
get that connected somehow on your site or something. But yeah, no, it's, like you said, there's all people, across the world that are in similar positions for you. And, thanks for having me on and listening to my perspective of the night, and just, kind of sharing, a little bit about, from my side of things, like where our relationship started and where it's gone and where it will continue to go. So I think people have a good understanding, the ones that we're close to, but it's good just to kind of get that out there. And, you are clearly an inspiration for people, that go through their daily struggles, whether they're able-bodied or not. You've been a huge inspiration for me over the years, as I've been, as close to the situation as possible. And even being in that position, I don't know, I'm not living with you. Your parents are truly the ones that know what you go through on a daily. But, hopefully people in my position listening to this podcast it will give them some, courage to, like, if they have friends or family members, to courage to maybe interact with, that person in a different way. Or maybe this gives them a little extra confidence to kind of not be so timid and asking their friend or family member, or even just a random person, to go on an adventure or have a conversation about life, or just do something like that. Right. So obviously, this whole thing you have going on is very inspiring to everyone, but hopefully, hearing my side of the things, it would inspire people to, next time you're out and about, hopefully, somebody that hasn't talked to you in a long time, or maybe they've never talked to you about, deeper stuff, past a couple layers, maybe that would give them the kind of confidence and kind of feel good to have a conversation with you, or, like I said, anybody else.
Right. And I think that's a big thing, as you go through, is learning and understanding how to navigate through
Mm-hmm.
trials and tribulations. So obviously for us, we're going to do it our way,
Mm-hmm.
and just how it works. And
Right.
I would say how you've handled it, how I've handled it. I love the relationship that we
Mm-hmm.
have.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't change it for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked out very well. So my biggest thing is, don't hesitate to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Whether you think it's too much, it's too early, always just reach out.
Absolutely.
Like, that would be my big thing too. And from my side, from your side, Talking about her last night, I'd love to hear stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love to see that out there making an impact in the world,
Hmm.
especially at such a young age where
Yeah. Yeah.
kids would be so timid and shy. I mean, even able-bodied to
Yeah.
go out there and doing what they want to do and like you said, living life. And, I always want to end with a question here for you and all the guests that I do have is, how do you live life?
That's a good question. Like I said, right now it's just one day at a time, but just maximizing that time, right? Like just prioritizing what's important to you in life and, making sure that you understand that, but then you also execute on that. So kind of a long drawn out answer, but just one day at a time and just appreciate all the relationships that you've had over the years, and just continue to grow those relationships and new adventures, man. Yeah, that's how I would say. I don't know if you were looking for a one word answer, but that's how I would say I live life.
Oh, I think that's a beautiful answer. Again, Tony, thank you so much for joining. Can't wait to get this released out to people. I know it's going to be a little while, but appreciate it. Maybe we'll have some more adventures
Yeah.
in the meantime.
Yeah, we'll share those later. But no, thank you, Brown. I appreciate it, man.
Of course. This is Living Life with Brendan podcast, episode number 2 with my first live guest, Tony. Can't thank him enough for joining on today. Thanks again, guys.